Now we're going to go over the wide receiver position, which is really the deepest position, the hardest position to draft. Everybody is going for the top wide receivers early in the rounds in the fantasy football drafts usually. Um, Here we have uh, what happened last season on the right versus what we're predicting on the left. And if you notice, it's actually a funny occurrence here. We have the top five uh, wide receivers from last season. We're predicting to be the top five next season and in the same order, which I don't see happening. That would have to be a very interesting coincidence. But uh, I think what we can take from that is that these guys are all worth your top five wide receivers to take in the draft, and that's starting with CeeDee Lamb, and then Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown. That's the elite of the elite. Can't miss wide receivers that you should be thinking about taking if they're on the board. Um, and if they're not on the board, go ahead and check those running backs before you come back to the wide receiver groups. Um, um, Number six, Mike Evans. Number seven, DJ Moore. Number eight, Keenan Allen. Number nine, Brandon Ayuk. Number 10, Jamar Chase. I think number 11, Nico Collins. Number 12, Stephon Diggs. I think the thing to point out here is that uh, Mike Evans and DJ Moore um, are and Keenan Allen and Brandon Ayuk are all ranked above Jamar Chase, and that is maybe controversial compared to the other mock drafts and prediction models out there, such as ESPN, Yahoo. They will probably all rank Jamar Chase over a guy like Brandon Ayuk. But I think all things equal, Brandon Ayuk, Jamar Chase, I think Brandon Ayuk is the more safe pick, and that should be why he. I think that's why um, it's you know why we favor Brandon Ayuk over Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, he has a history of getting injured. He also his quarterback does have a history of getting injured as well. Um, and Brandon Ayuk, the only thing that is controversial about him right now is his contract. So then followed by those two, we have Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs to round out the wide receiver ones. So these guys are all wide receiver one territory. Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins seems like the most reliable guy, at least more reliable than Tank Dell when it comes to Texans wide receivers. But Stephon Diggs, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, at this point, he's a legend of the wide receivers. Um, we saw what he did in Buffalo. We saw what he did in Minnesota. Seems like these two lives will become easier. Maybe like a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle thing. Um, I think they'll both be very productive, and I think it's fair to put them both as wide receiver ones. Devontae Adams, number one in the wide receiver two range. Michael Pittman, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith. Um, I think the only couple ones there that really surprised me is Amari Cooper and Chris Olave. Uh, those guys seem like they're not as good. You could already pretty much pencil them in for not being as good as the rest of the guys there. Calvin Ridley, number 19, 20, Garrett Wilson, 21, DK Metcalf, 22, DeAndre Hopkins, 23, Jordan Addison, 24, Rashee Rice, 25, Chris Godwin, 26, Justin Jefferson, 27, Tim McLaurin, 28, uh, George Pickens. So right here, a glaring, obvious uh, thing that we're seeing here is Justin Jefferson at 26 now. This is definitely a flaw. You know, let me know what you think about this. This is huge flaw. I mean, obviously, I would love to take Justin Jefferson over Amari Cooper. I would love to take him over Chris Olave, uh, and you could argue uh, a bunch of guys on the top 13, 14 picks in for wide receivers. He's proven that he's when healthy, and if he has a good quarterback, that he could be the best player in fantasy football. So I would like to see him ranked higher here, but just the nature of this machine learning program that I created is that it's still in its infancy stages. So we're not going to have uh, everything sorted out, but I think it's at a good enough place where I can use it to like draft this season, and and it will be fun to see the results of that. Terry McLaurin, uh, Washington with Jaden McDaniels, that should be interesting. Rasheed Rice, we know what's going on with him and his legal issues, but besides that, he's a great player. Reminds me a little bit of Debo Samuel. Um, Jalen Waddle, another guy that it's this has to be a flaw, right? I would take him over Amari Cooper, definitely. I would take him um, over Chris Olave, definitely. Number 29, I mean, he's not going to be there as the 29th best wide receiver. Uh, Another guy to see here, Debo Samuel, minus 19. The machine learning model does not like receivers like Debo Samuel, whether that be his injuries, whether that be his splits as a wide receiver, getting carries, getting rushing attempts, rushing yards. Uh, when it comes to wide receivers, we think Debo will take a huge step backwards. Uh, will fall off. Not worth taking the risk for Debo Samuel. Cooper Kupp is another guy to notice here at number 39. Um, Same thing, must be the injuries, but I don't think that Cooper is obviously um, a much more natural wide receiver in terms of he's not taking as many running back snaps and stuff like Debo Samuel. Um, I should say conventional. He's a much more conventional wide receiver, and we're just scrolling through to see if there's any other things that stand out to us so that we could talk about and point out while we're uh, experimenting with this new application to help us win our fantasy football drafts, our fantasy football leagues, uh, using data, historical data, and letting the computer uh, uh, be make logical decisions instead of somebody like myself, a human. Uh, we see Tank Dell there at number 42. Tank Dell, yeah, if he wouldn't have got injured, he would have been interesting to see where he would have been ranked here. Probably top 10 wide receiver, but um, that's about it for wide receivers.